Tried to steal my catalytic converter. Instant regret. The screech was like nails on a chalkboard, only louder, more metallic, and directly related to the pathetic state of my morning. I lurched out of bed, already knowing what it was. Catalytic converter. Gone. Again. I threw on some jeans and a t-shirt, not bothering to brush my teeth. Sarah was still asleep, bless her heart, oblivious to the automotive apocalypse happening in our driveway. I tiptoed downstairs, grabbed the baseball bat from behind the door, a relic from my less-than-stellar college baseball career, and headed out. Yep. Jagged cut in the exhaust pipe, dangling wires, and the lingering metallic smell of, what was that? Battery acid? They were getting sloppy. The first time it happened, I'd filed a police report, spent $1,000 replacing the damn thing, and chalked it up to bad luck. Now, 3 months later, it felt less like bad luck and more like a personal vendetta. Or, more likely, just a really lucrative target. My '06 Honda Element was apparently the catalytic converter thief's car of choice this season. Officer Miller, the same guy who'd taken my report the first time, arrived with a weary sigh. Happened again, huh, Mark? Yup, I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Same MO. Looks like they even left a little present this time. Battery acid on the asphalt. He shrugged. Look, Mr. Peterson, I understand your frustration, but these thefts are happening all over the city. We're doing what we can. He scribbled something in his notepad. I'll file the report. Call your insurance company. That's it? I asked, incredulous. Just file the report? They're probably halfway to the scrapyard with my converter already. What else can I do, sir? Unless you have a suspect or a witness. I clenched my jaw. Right, a witness. I'll keep that in mind. He gave me a sympathetic look, handed me a card, and drove off. Sarah came out as I was surveying the damage. Oh, Mark, not again. Tell me about it. I ran a hand through my hair. Miller just left. Same old story. Nothing they can do. She put her arm around me. Honey, maybe we should just move, or get a different car. Move? Because some lowlifes can't keep their hands off other people's property? No way. And a different car? They'll just move on to the next one. I was practically vibrating with anger. I'm not going to let them win, Sarah. This stops now. Sarah sighed, knowing when I was digging in my heels. All right, Mark. Just be careful. Careful wasn't exactly my middle name at the moment. The next few days were a blur of research, online forums, and late nights in the garage. I learned everything I could about catalytic converter theft. The selenite metals inside, platinum, palladium, rhodium, were worth a fortune. The thieves could make a quick buck, and the scrapyards apparently weren't asking too many questions. I installed a cheap dashcam, figuring it was better than nothing. I wired up motion-activated floodlights around the driveway. And then, I started working on something a little more proactive. My engineering background came in handy. I designed a metal cage to protect the catalytic converter, making it much harder to cut off. I also wired up a pressure sensor that would trigger a deafening alarm if anyone messed with the exhaust system. It wasn't foolproof, but it would buy me some time. Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor, God bless her gossipy heart, stopped me one afternoon. Mark dear, I saw a suspicious van driving around the other night. Dark color, tinted windows, seemed to be circling the block. Did you get a license plate, Mrs. Henderson? Oh no, dear. I can barely see the television these days. But it was definitely suspicious. Young men, I think. Wearing hoodies. Classic. I adjusted the dash cam to focus on the street, hoping to catch something. I also spent a few nights sitting in my car, pretending to read a book, but really watching for that van. 3 nights later, around 2:00 a.m., the motion-activated lights flickered on. I jumped out of my car, bat in hand, and saw 2 figures under my Honda. They were sawing away at something, sparks flying. Hey, I yelled, adrenaline coursing through me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" They froze, looked up, and panicked. One of them dropped his saw. They scrambled out from under the car and took off running. I gave chase for about 20 feet before realizing I was in my pajamas and slippers. Not exactly Olympic sprinting attire, but they'd left something behind. The saw, a crowbar, and something else. The dashcam had caught their license plate. Crystal clear. I called Detective Harding, Officer Miller's boss, apparently, and this time, he sounded a little more interested. "All right, Mr. Peterson, bring the evidence down to the station. And maybe wear some pants this time." Harding was a gruff, middle-aged guy with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow. He looked like he'd seen it all, and probably had. "So, you're telling me you chased them off with a baseball bat?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yep, and I got their license plate on camera. Plus, they left their tools." I laid out the evidence on his desk. He examined the dashcam footage. "Not bad, Peterson, not bad at all. This is definitely something we can work with." "So, what now? You going to arrest them? We'll run the plate, see who it belongs to. Could be stolen, could be a dead end. But we'll check it out." I could tell he wasn't exactly holding his breath. "Look, detective," I said, "I appreciate you taking this seriously, but I'm not going to sit around and wait for you to solve this. These guys are out there, probably stealing someone else's catalytic converter right now." Harding sighed. "Mr. Peterson, I understand your frustration, but you need to let us do our job. We can't have you going around playing vigilante." "I'm not playing vigilante. I'm protecting my property." He gave me a warning look. "Just be careful, all right? This could get dangerous." Dangerous was starting to sound appealing. The van was registered to a Kevin Miller, no relation to Officer Miller, apparently. Address: a rundown apartment complex on the other side of town. I staked out the apartment complex for 2 days. I saw Kevin a couple of times, a skinny, nervous-looking kid with a perpetual slouch. I also saw a guy named Dave, bigger, more aggressive, with tattoos on his neck. They were definitely the 2 guys I chased off. I followed them one afternoon to a chop shop in a sketchy industrial area. The sign said Ace Auto Recycling, but it looked more like a graveyard for stolen cars. This was it, the hub of the operation. I started documenting everything. The cars that came and went, the people who worked there, the license plates. I even managed to get some photos of them unloading catalytic converters from a van. The place was run by a guy they called Tony. He looked like a bouncer, all muscle and menacing glare. He seemed to be the brains of the operation, barking orders and counting cash. I knew I had to be careful. These guys weren't messing around. I needed more evidence. I needed something concrete to give Harding. I noticed that the vans leaving the chop shop often headed to a storage facility on the edge of town. Bingo. I waited until nightfall and followed one of the vans to the storage unit. I parked a safe distance away and watched. They unloaded several boxes from the van and disappeared inside one of the units. This was my chance. I waited until they left. Then I carefully approached the storage unit. The lock looked flimsy. A few minutes with the lockpick set, another skill I'd picked up during my layoff, and I was in. The unit was filled with catalytic converters, hundreds of them, stacked floor to ceiling. The smell of exhaust fumes and metal was overpowering. I took photos, careful not to touch anything. I also noticed a ledger on a nearby table. It detailed the sales, the expenses, the profits. A goldmine of evidence. I copied the ledger onto a USB drive and got out of there. I went straight to Detective Harding. I laid out the photos, the ledger, the whole story. He was impressed. "Peterson, I gotta say, you've done more police work in the last week than half my squad does in a month. So, what now? Are we going to shut this place down?" "We're going to shut it down," Harding said, a grim smile spreading across his face. "Tomorrow night. We'll hit the chop shop and the storage unit simultaneously. I want you there, Peterson. You know the layout better than anyone." I was in. The raid was like something out of a movie. Sirens blaring, flashing lights, cops swarming the chop shop. Big Tony and his crew were caught completely off guard. They didn't even have time to react. Kevin and Dave tried to make a run for it, but I knew their escape routes. I cut them off in an alleyway. "Nowhere to run," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. They looked at me, their faces pale with fear. "You?" Dave spat. "This is all your fault." "Maybe," I said. "But it's over now." The police arrived and cuffed them. Big Tony was furious. As they led him away, he glared at me. "You're a dead man, Peterson," he snarled. I met his gaze unflinching. "Not today, Tony. Not today." The storage unit raid was just as successful. They recovered hundreds of stolen catalytic converters, along with a stash of cash and other stolen goods. The news went wild. Local engineer dismantles catalytic converter theft ring. The headline screamed. I became a local hero. The trial was a formality. The evidence was overwhelming. Big Tony and his crew were convicted and sentenced to significant prison terms. I testified, presenting the evidence I'd gathered. I even got to see Big Tony's face when the judge read the verdict. Pure, unadulterated rage. After the trial, I got a commendation from the police department. Detective Harding even cracked a smile. "You know, Peterson," he said, "you've got a knack for this. Maybe you should think about a career change." I laughed. "I'm an engineer, detective, not a cop." But the truth was, I was starting to think about a career change. A security firm contacted me, impressed by my ingenuity and analytical skills. They offered me a job designing anti-theft systems. I took it. It wasn't exactly what I'd planned for my life, but it was a chance to use my skills to make a difference. And it was a hell of a lot more exciting than sitting around waiting for someone to steal my catalytic converter. I still have the baseball bat though, just in case.